We're recording. Sorry, guys. Let's take a quick look at what we're doing so that we don't just start kind of jumping into code without knowing what's going on, right?
Oh, are you going to do the Sunday bonus too?
Uh,
That would be cool. That'd be sick. What's the piece of cake to you?
yeah, and actually I'd like to do it. It's just if this takes too long, then I may not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Local storage is kind of interesting. So, all right. Let's look at the picture, and the image is not the best. I apologize. This is my poor image. But in terms of the things that can change in this particular component, what do we see that's likely to need some kind of state?
The input.
Okay, excellent. So that's one thing, right? We've got one piece of state. What else?
The completed.
Okay. So the completed is sort of connected to one specific item, right? Now this thing is going to render out a list of items. So in that sense, what's the other kind of piece of state that we need?
Delete.
The list of items, right? Yeah, delete is not really state. What is that going to be? It's going to be like some type of a function, right?
Yeah.
That would allow us to get rid of some item that's inside of our array. All right, so now that we kind of have a sense for what we're doing, let's go here. Oh, sorry. Let me go to my stacks, Mern, lectures. Okay, npx create React app to-dos, and open it up in code.
And it's like afterwards?
Yes. So if the first thing fails, it won't even get to your second. Yeah. All right. Let's keep looking at this and make sure that we have an idea what we're doing. I'm going to try to do something a little different on these items, which maybe you guys did or did not do. I'm thinking we can create a class for each to-do. Did anyone try that? No? All right. Let's try it. No, it will be a functional component, but what I mean is I'm just going to create an actual to-do class.
Oh.
Okay? So it won't be a component. It'll just be like the thing that's holding the to-dos information. Okay, is this done yet? Happy hacking. Sweet. Okay, cool. So let's go inside of our source. We know that we're going to have a component now, right? If I could spell this, components, and then we're going to create our todos.js. All right, what do I need to import here? Need React from React. What else will I probably need? Yes. Excellent. All right, now I'm going to create my function. So I can create this in different ways, but I could say const todos equals a function and go like that, right? So now it was an arrow function, and I've assigned to-dos to that arrow function. So say export default to-dos. All right. Now I said I was going to create a to-do class. Let's do it. So let's say class to-do. Notice I'm not extending anything. This is just bare bones class, just to store some information. I'm going to create a constructor here. And what would I probably want to take in the constructor? Yeah, some string, right? So we'll say str. Okay, and I'll say this dot str equals str. Or, yeah, let me change that to text, right? We'll say this dot text equals str. Okay, fair enough. Now, the other thing I wanted to create is some kind of like toggling method. So I want to change, the completed deal from true to false and so forth. So I also need to put that up in here, right? We want to store whether it's completed or not. So I'll say this dot completed equals false. Okay, and now I'm going to create this toggle method which will flip-flop that property, right? So we'll say toggle completed. Okay, and I'm just going to say this dot completed equals not this dot completed. Any questions about that? So if this dot completed is false, which it will be to begin with, right, and I negate that, what's this going to be turned into? True. If it's true at some point and I negate it, then that will turn it into false. Nice and easy, right? Okay. So that's all set and ready to go. Let's go back into our to-dos component here and let's set up some state, right? So as we said, the first bit of state is going to be the input, probably, right? So I'll say input val set input val. Okay, and I'm going to set that equal to what? Use state. We'll say the input is originally blank. Make sense? Okay. Now what's the other bit of state I want? The actual list, right? So we'll say to-dos set to-dos equals use state, and what am I going to pass that? Empty array, right? So it's empty to begin with. Okay, and then down here, let's just let's return something out so we can get something on the page. Okay, so I'll do maybe some fragment tags here, just so I don't have to worry about creating a bunch of divs. And then in the top is where I'm going to create my form. Okay, so we'll go form, and then inside that we just need to have this input. I'll leave some space in there because we know that we're going to have some things connected to that, right? And then I'm going to have a button that says add. Okay. All right. Now let's go back into our app.js and bring this in, right? So we'll say import to-dos from ./components/to-dos. Let's get rid of this. Okay. Now, do I need any props for this to-dos, do you guys think? How many people think that I need props for that to-dos component? Nobody. How many people think that I don't need props for it? Like half. So what do the rest of you think? All right. Yeah. So there was some question about this, I think, with the tabs assignment. Some people were sort of hard coding some information into that tabs component, which we didn't really want to do because we wanted that tabs component to be flexible, right? Now in this case, we're sort of assuming that we're starting with an empty list, so I don't really need to pass anything along to it, right? If I wanted to start with some list, would I want props at that point? Yeah, I probably would, right? So that I can kind of fuse it into this component. All right, cool. So let's get the thing started here. npm start. Yes. Okay, that was the old one from this morning. Hang on one second here. Okay, there we go. So we got our little form on the page. That's exciting. Cool. All right, now let's go back to our code and start creating some functionality here. So how am I going to keep track of this input's value? How am I going to make sure that that stays in sync with what I have in my state there? Well, I already did use state up here, right? Okay, so I need to put a value here. And what am I going to set that equal to? Input val. Now notice how my input val is just a string right now. It's not like a nested object, so I don't need to reach into it any further. Okay. And then how do I make sure it stays in sync? So right now it's going to show me the correct value, but what if I start typing into it? I need an on change, right? Okay. And I could probably just write this in line here if I want to. So what's that going to take? A callback function. Okay, we'll say, I'm just going to shorten that to E for event. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to say set input val to e.target.value. Okay? Questions about this? You guys were all right with that?
That is what you want to set it to.
Correct, yeah. So what I'm saying is at the moment that the user types in there, we're going to grab the value that he or she just typed in, and then we're going to invoke set input value against that value. Okay? So that those two things stay in sync. All right. Now, in order for us to be able to handle a submission on this, what else do I need to do? I need to create some sort of on submit handler function up here. So let's do that. So we'll say function handle submit, and what's that going to take in? The event. Okay. What is the event, by the way? It's a submit event. Yeah, so it could be triggered by that, but it could also be triggered by somebody hitting enter. Okay. All right. So what's the first thing we want to do inside here? So we'll say event.prevent default, and that stops what? Yes, the native HTML functionality. Okay, fair enough. So let's create a new to-do, right? So how do we do that? So I'll say const new to-do equals what? Does anybody know how to create a new instance of a class? You guys remember? New to-do. All right. So it's telling me that I need a string, right? Where am I getting the string from? Input val, right? Because that's what the input is at that time. Okay. And then down here, I'm just going to, I'm going to basically empty out that input val just so it creates a better user experience. So I'm going to say set input val, and then I'm going to pass in an empty string. Okay. But we're still not done here, right? Okay, so where do I want to put this new to-do? In that list. So how can I add to it? What if I want to use ... Remember I showed you that the other day and you were all excited about it?
Constant ...
Can I just call this set to-dos function and pass in a new array using ...
Yes.
All right. Let's try that. So let's say set to-dos. Okay, we're going to create a new array, and I'm going to say ... to-dos. And then what's the second item going to be in here? It's going to be that new to-do. Okay, fair enough. That looks pretty good, right? Okay, so now it's telling me handle submit was defined but not used. Also, this logo is defined but not used, so I can get rid of that. And then also, let's attach this to the form. So let's say on submit equals handle submit. Okay. If I render this and I submit an item right now, are we going to see any items? Why not? Because, well, it's not just that there's nothing in the list. Am I rendering anything down here? No. All right, so how am I going to do that? I want to iterate through my items, right? Okay. Tell me how. Yes. Okay, but give me give me the complete syntax. Okay, so right now we're calling our state to-dos, right? Okay. So I'm going to say to-dos dot map. Okay. So yeah, we know we need a callback function, right? That much is clear. All right, let's call it to-do, just because we're really creative, right? And then we'll have, we could drop this in like a p tag. Or, oh, you wanted an li? What did it look like here?
Yeah, annoying.
Okay, it could just be a div then, I guess, right? All right, let's make it a div. Cool. And then inside there, we're going to have the text of this thing, right? So we'll say to-do.text. Okay, and then after this, we're also going to have this little checkbox. So let's drop that in there. So we'll say input. Okay. How do I get that input type? Type equals checkbox. Cool. All right. And how do I tap into whether it's checked or not? Checked. Cool. You guys know what's up. All right. So I've got this attribute called checked. And what am I going to set that equal to? To-do.completed, right? So if it's completed, that thing will be checked. Otherwise, it won't be. Okay. All right. Now, we need to do some kind of a, yeah, you're right, we do need to do a key. Let's put that up there. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. All right, now the other thing that we need to do, it's going to tell us something like, if you have a value for checked, you also need to have an onChange handler, right? Did you guys come across this at all? Like where it warned you about that? Okay. So let's create one of those. We'll say onChange equals. Okay, so we're going to have a callback function here. And then what are we going to do here? I'm going to do nothing right now. Actually, wait, let me just log the whole thing out. I'm not going to do anything just yet. We'll come back to that. All right, maybe that's a little bit tricky. All right, now, otherwise, we also need a button at the end, right? Delete button. Okay, cool. So I'll create that over here. Button. Delete. Okay. And then we're going to have an onClick handler for this guy, right? Equals. Okay. I'm going to create a little function in here that will say handle delete. What am I going to pass to that function, do you guys think? I, because I need to know what the index is of the item that I'm deleting, right? Okay. Cool. That looks pretty good. Anything else I need down there? Oh, well, I forgot to define it. Let's just create like an empty function here. Function, handle, delete. We'll come back to that, right? Just want to make sure that this is working and that we can like get new to-dos showing up, right? So, have breakfast. Okay, cool. That's showing up. Get black belt. All right, we're in business. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to be able to toggle these guys, right? All right. So we have this, bless you, we have this little onChange event that we've tapped into here. Okay? So what are we going to run when this thing fires? In fact, let's take a quick look and see what we're getting. So if I go into my console here and I click on this, we're getting this synthetic event, right? And then if I go, shoot, it's not showing me the target here. Darn it. No, I can't seem to open it up. But if I were seeing the target, it would give me that input, right? Okay. So what I think that we want to do here is we want to create a function up here. Yeah, exactly. So let's say function toggle completed. Okay. What do you guys think I want to take in on the toggle completed? We're going to. Yeah. So what do I need to take in though to know which one I'm trying to toggle? The index, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll say index. Okay. So to grab that, how can I get it? How can I get that specific? So I'll say const to do, this is the one that we're trying to toggle, equals what? At that index, right? Why will dot notation not work? Yeah. Yeah, it's an array. Okay. So now that we have that to do, how do I toggle it? So we've got this thing up here that we put inside of our class, right? So I can say to do, it's not going to be this, it's going to be this to do, right? Toggle completed. I'll call that method, right? Okay. Now, let me ask you something. Once we toggle this completed right here, is that going to update what we're seeing on our screen? No, why not? Set what specifically?
The list.
Yeah, we haven't updated the actual to-dos list, right? So if I came back in and I said set to-dos against to-dos, because I just sort of updated one element in it, would this work? No, why not? Yeah, kind of confusing, right? Why does that not work? Well, let's test it and make sure that it doesn't work, and then we'll talk about why. All right? Okay, so let's drop this down here. Where was our? Okay, so our onChange, I'm going to create a little anonymous function here, and I'm just going to say toggle completed I. This is a good question. Yeah, so this kind of comes up from time to time. It's like, well, what is this function going to get over here? It's going to get an event, not an index. Kind of tricky. All right, so let's try this out. So I create my to-do here, and I say eat breakfast. And then I try to toggle this thing. Whoa. Seems like it's happening, but it kind of isn't, right? Like there's some activity trying to happen up there. Cool. So how can I fix this then? I heard something about cloning it. How could we do that? Could kind of do something like this. So yeah, so let's talk about why that wasn't working. To-dos had not really changed in the sense that that array was still the same thing in memory. Does that kind of make sense? We altered one object that was inside of it, but we didn't actually change that array in the sense that it's still the same array in memory. So by us cloning it like this, we're essentially creating a brand new array. So that should tell React, please re-render this for me because something has in fact changed. So before when we were calling set to-dos, it just saw that as like, but you're giving me back the exact same array that I already had. So I don't really need to re-render here. Okay. So let's try it again. Let's toggle that. Okay, that seems to be working as expected, right? Very nice. Okay, now what do we want to have happen if I toggle it as completed? I want to strike through on that, right? To show it. So let's see how we can handle that. If we go down here, we'll close this out so we have a better view. So when we're rendering each to-do, inside here, I want to create a span tag, right, for my strike through part. So let's create a little span tag. Bring this up in there. Okay, and then I'm going to just use some really simple styling. You could obviously use CSS modules for this, but I'm just going to keep it simple here. So I'm going to create an object here for our styles, and we'll say text decoration. Why is that camel case? Does anybody know? Yeah, exactly. So if we're doing style inside JSX, everything becomes camel case as opposed to hyphenated. Okay. So we'll say to do dot completed question mark. If it is, then we're going to say line through. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to just put none for the text decoration. All right. So let's see if that's working as we expect. Excellent. Pretty nice, right? All right. So we're almost there. The only thing that we need to do now is delete these ones once they're done. Okay? All right, so we already have this little handle delete right here, which is taking in the index of the item that I want to delete. So all we have to do is build out this handle delete function, which is blank right now. So I'm going to take in the index right there. Lawrence, I heard you talking about a good way to do this. How can we do this?
What?
Just something I overheard. I think you know a good way to handle this.
Filter.
A filter, right? How about that? So how could we do it? We could say const filtered equals, what am I going to filter here? So we'll say to-dos dot filter. Okay? And then what do I need to pass filter? A callback function. My callback function will take in what? It'll take in an item and an index, right? Do I even need the item at this point, though?
No.
So I can just make that an underscore. Doesn't really matter. Okay, it's just like a placeholder. And what am I going to return here? Yeah, so how do I do that inside this callback function? Even easier than that, I can just return out a true or false right here. So if I does not equal index, then I want to hang on to that item, right? Okay, so we'll say return whether I does not equal index. Cool. Now what I want to do with this filtered list? So I need to call that setToDos function again, which is going to update my list, and it's going to tell React to re-render, right? So we'll pass in this filtered. Excellent. Let's try it. Something deleted, something else, a new one. Check it, deleted, everything's working as expected, right? Was this like significantly easier than you guys thought it was, or does it just like seem easier now that we're talking about it?
It seems easier when you do it.
Okay, all right. where do you guys want to take this? Do you want me to like break something out into another component, or?
Local story.
All right. Oh boy.
Just start drawing.
Okay, so let's think about this then. If we want to persist this and somehow pick up kind of where we left off, I might need that that use effect hook that I introduced you guys to earlier today. Why? Why might we want to do that?
So every time it renders, it's already there?
Well, I may want to do something when this thing renders the first time, which is like grab everything from my local storage. So let's bring in that use effect hook. Okay. Then down here, what we want to do is we want to call that use effect hook, right? So say use effect. I'm going to invoke it, and then I need to pass that what? A callback function. And as you were saying, as the second argument here, I'm going to say an empty array, basically telling it only run this thing the first time we load the component. Okay. Now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to attempt to get some items from the local storage. So let's see, we'll say const items equals local storage dot get item, and we'll just call these to dos. Okay. Only problem here is that local storage doesn't really store things in a nice structured way. It's basically just a bunch of key value pairs. Okay. So if I want to store a list, like an array inside local storage, I'm going to need to basically turn that list into a string. Now when I get the items back out of it, I'm going to have to parse it back into regular JSON, JavaScript. Okay. So here's how we could parse it. I can say JSON.parse this item that we get from there. Okay. And then what would I do to set those items now? Assuming that I've just gotten them from local storage, now I need to set my to-dos, right? So we'll say items right there. Okay. Let's see if this throws us any errors. I have a feeling it will. Can't read property map of null. Okay. All right. So let's try something else here. Inside here, I'm going to create a try-catch block. Okay, so we're only going to do this if there's actually something, if there's something already inside local storage. So I'll say catch E, and then I'll just console, or we'll call it error. Maybe I'll do it like this. All right, and let's go back and see what happens here. Woo. Why does it not seem to be throwing an error? Hang on one second. Let's console.log items here and see what they are. So if I go to my console, up above all the errors, items was null. Okay. So let's just do a little check there. So hold on, let me get rid of some stuff. So if items not equal null, then we want to use this, right? Because they've been stored. Now let me move this. Okay. Now, the other thing that we need to be aware of is since we're trying to create some sort of persistent storage, we're going to have to save things every time we make changes to our state, right? Okay, so in our handle submit, in addition to just setting the new to-dos, we're going to have to do something else. So I'll say const new list equals this. Okay, so I can still set to-dos against new list, and then I also need to save it inside my local storage so that it will stick around for a page refresh. So I can say local storage dot set item. The key here is going to be to-dos, and the value is going to be our new list. Only, what did I say about what we can store in there? Can it be a yeah, it's going to have to be a string, which means that I need to now stringify this thing. JSON.stringify. Okay, fair enough. And the same thing's going to happen with our toggle, right? So every time I toggle something, I need to keep my local storage up to date as well. So let me grab this. Oops. Come down here. And we'll say const cloned equals these to-dos, right? Cloned. All right, any questions about this, what I was doing there? Before, we only needed that value in one place, so I had not even set a variable for it. But now, since we're using it again over here, I just dropped it into a variable. Okay. All right, cool. So let's see if we can give this a try. Something else. Okay, let me refresh the page. And they're there. They're still there, right? A new one. Refresh. All three of them are still there. Not that bad, right? A little local storage primer. All right, let's go through this code a little bit. Make sure we get what's happening. Since there are so few of you, I'm going to call on everyone. Yay. All right. Yeah, we'll call on Regina too. Don't worry, Rose. I'll throw you a softball. All right, Regina, what's happening on line 1? On line 1, you could do line 1.
So from React, we're importing React.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we're kind of destructuring and taking out use effect and use state.
Yeah, perfect. So this is the entire library, and then these are two pieces of the library that we want specifically, right? Good. Francis, how about class to do?
So we're creating this class called to do,
Mm-hmm.
and in there we have a constructor that takes in a string,
All right.
and then inside that we have these two things called this dot text. I forgot what they were called.
Those are called attributes.
Attributes. There we go.
Right? Okay.
This one is this dot text, which is equal to the string, and boolean called this dot completed, which we're setting to false.
Right. So when we first create a to-do, we're assuming that it hasn't yet been done.
Right.
All right. Then we've got this other method here, right?
Yeah, we have a function called toggle completed,
Right.
and then there is an attribute called, or we're just taking that this dot completed attribute and we're negating it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if that one is false, then that's true.
Becomes true.
Yeah, it becomes true.
And the other way around, if it was true, then it becomes false.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. give me the first few lines of this to-dos here,
Um,
14 through 16.
okay. You're creating the variable called to-dos and you're setting it to a function.
Excellent.
And the function, it destructures. The first one destructures the state into input val and set input val.
Good.
It's in a string.
All right. So our initial value will be
An empty string.
empty string.
And then the second one, it puts in an empty array. So
Mhm.
to-dos will be empty array
Initially.
initially. Yeah, and the set to-dos is the function.
Excellent. Okay. And then Lawrence, tell me about this use effect here from 18 to 24.
Call the use effect function, callback function. We said
And then the second argument that we were
second is empty array.
good.
Means we only run once when you render this.
Exactly. Only run it one time. Okay. And then inside the body of our callback, what are we doing?
Callback function. We set item to the storage. The get item.
Mhm.
And we parse it to JSON
Mhm.
object.
Right. So if we have something in there, it's going to be stored as a string. So JSON.parse is going to take it from a string and turn it back into this array that we need. Right. Okay. Cool. And then what else are we doing?
If the items isn't null,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna set the to do to this new variables.
Right. To these items that we grabbed from the local storage.
Mm.
So the app, when it first loads up, we would expect those to-dos to still be that empty array, right? For just a split second.
Mm.
And then what's going to happen is we're going to run this code inside the use effect. This is going to happen, which will cause this component to re-render. Almost right away. Like you won't even notice that it was, the list was empty in the beginning, right? Okay. Excellent. Then we've got our handle submit. Erica.
Well, it's a handle submit function.
Mm-hmm.
It takes an event.
Right.
And you're going to prevent the default. That means when we submit the form, it's going to prevent the default HTTP request.
Uh-huh.
We're setting a new variable. We're creating a new variable called new to do, and it's going to call. That's the new keyword.
Right.
For the to do
Class.
class.
So we created to-do class up above.
And
So when we pass it the input val, what does that mean?
that comes from the current value of whatever the user has input,
Good.
and then creating another constant with the new list. So I think that's pretty much saying what it is, just putting the new list in the.
So we're taking all the existing values, right? We're spreading across them, and then we're adding this new one to the end.
To correct.
Right. Okay. Next.
Set to do's, calling the set to do's function from the constant from the use state.
Yeah. So that's going to tell React what?
We're gonna set the new list to be
Whatever we pass in here.
correct.
Okay. And then it will also tell React to re-render. Okay. It's basically triggering it that let's go back up to the top of this function and start re-rendering because something has just changed here. Okay. All right. Next, line 34.
We're gonna local storage set
Mm-hmm. So remember, local storage is just a bunch of key value pairs. It's like this giant object or dictionary, depending on how you want to look at it.
That comes from React or from the
No. This is browser JavaScript. Has nothing to do with React. Okay, so if I'm saying set item, this is the key that I want to set, to-dos, and the value is the thing that comes as the second argument. Okay.
So to-dos comes from our to-dos, or
That's just what I've decided to call it. We could name it something else. Of course, we'd have to have it in sync in those different places, right? We'd have to be using the same name as far as the key goes.
okay.
Okay. All right, and then the value is what?
So stringify the new list, meaning you're gonna convert the list of arrays into a string.
I'm going to take this array and turn it into a string. Exactly, because that's the only way I'll be able to store it into local storage. Okay.
This is different with regular servers, right? Servers, or doesn't matter if they're strings or arrays.
Yeah, so in this case, well, I mean, it is going to matter on some level, but when we're storing something locally, there's no server really involved in this sense, right?
Okay. Only local.
We're not sending it back to a database. There's this sort of mini database right there in your browser that we're using. Okay? So our server has no access to local storage at all. If we ever need to like take something from it and send it to the server, you're going to have to do that manually using JavaScript. Okay? But you won't. I mean, at least not in the sense of this course. I'm just saying if you ever need to access something in local storage, if the server needs to access it, it can't get to it directly. You have to do it inside your browser JavaScript code to send it to the server.
That would be dangerous. If we could, right?
Depends what it was. I mean, like, maybe it's just some small little thing that's not really like, yeah. Okay, so let's keep going. We set input val.
That resets the input.
Good. Just creates kind of a nice user experience. All right, Francis, 39, toggle completed.
So we have another function called toggle completed to take care of the checkbox.
Yeah.
And it takes in the index
Mm-hmm.
of the item. And we have this constant variable called to do, which is going to be the to do's at that index.
Right, so we're trying to grab that specific item.
Mhm.
Good.
And then we're gonna take that to do that we have.
We just grabbed.
We just grab, and then call the toggle completed function that we had up there earlier.
Excellent. So that's available to us because we put it inside the class as a method.
Right. And then we have the this constant variable called flow,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't have to keep writing all the function that to do's.
Right.
And then I guess we just take the dot to do's. Are we just taking all the to do's?
This is spreading. Yeah, it's
Right,
spreading
yeah.
across all the ones that are existing there.
And then we just set the to do's to be that cloned.
Yeah. So if we didn't do the clone, what we were noticing is that React would not re-render because it was just seeing the exact same array that it had before, even though we had toggled the completed in there.
Okay.
All right.
So if you didn't put clone there, if you put dot to do's in the array, will it still work or no? Not really.
You mean if I just went like this, the way that we had it before?
Would it still work?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically.
Yeah, the reason I was putting it in a variable is because I was going to use it in two places. I was going to use it here
yeah.
and here.
Right. And then now we just have that local storage where we set that item.
Mm-hmm.
Take the value to use and
So this is the name of the key,
right.
and this is the value that I want to be connected to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Where we make the clone array into a string.
Mm-hmm. We turn it into a string so that local storage is okay with holding it. Okay, good. Aya, handle delete.
It's a function, and it indexes passed through it. There's the constant variable filtered,
Right.
and we did to do's, so the list dot filter, and then we're skipping the item, and then passing the index, and then it's picking up all the items that doesn't equal I, or which is
So where the index does not equal the index that we took in, right, in our delete function.
right.
So if you're not the one that I'm trying to delete, then go ahead and stick around. I'm going to keep you for now. Yeah. Okay? And then what do we do here?
And then we're setting the filtered list for the to-dos.
Yeah. So that's just us updating the to-dos right there. Good. I think we covered a lot of ground here. Does anybody have any final questions before we break? Yes.
Why did we use a class instead of a constructor in the first to-do? Or in the to-do?
What do you mean instead of a constructor? There is a
instead of
constructor.
Functions.
a function.
This is not a React component. I want to make that really clear. Did it seem like it was a component?
Well, I guess I don't know.
You don't know the difference? Yeah, see, we have no JSX inside here, right? This is just a straight JavaScript class. That's it.
Okay.
I just wanted to make it easy for us to do the toggle completed. There are definitely other ways to do it. We could have stored these as regular objects, not connected to any specific class. But I thought this would be kind of a fun exercise because we've talked about classes a little bit, and this is kind of a cool little instance where you could use one.
So you can definitely like put together, like, well, you said this is not a component, but you can definitely put a class and I guess like with a functional.
Yeah, so let's think about what's going on here. This is a functional component, and inside its state, I'm holding this array of objects.
Right.
Now, my objects just happen to be of this type. They happen to be of the type to do.
Oh.
But again, this is not a React component. All it is a class.
Okay.
That was a good question. Any others about or things that seemed funky?
Oh, I have a question. So like the assignment, before they said they had like 3 default initial to-dos there.
It did?
Yeah.
Well, it didn't say that down here, did it?
Oh, no, really?
No, I think
That wasn't my
the
image.
purpose of the picture was just to show you that, oh, we've already entered something in. It wasn't so much like start with a certain number
like
of
that.
items.
But
Yeah.
if we have something there, so that means like we need to set ID things for the old one. I'm a little confused about like whether we need to set ID as an attribute as well.
For what purpose? To what end?
For the thing we want to delete them. as
Well, but we
then-
could still use the indices as kind of like an ID, right? Because as long as I know what index the thing is at, I can easily filter it out of my list.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, cool, guys. I'm going to stop the video here.